Welcome back to the YouTube channel. I'm 3 Point Spanish King, aka Lucas, and we're here with good friend James Butler from England, all the way from England. Um, uh, well, James, end of the third Test match. Amazingly, England played their best cricket this Test match, but stinked up the joint in the process in their batting. I thought I'll leave that to you. I'll actually leave that to you. So, any words for that, James? Go your hardest. Go your absolute hardest.
I'm disgusted. I'm angry. I'm disappointed. We've spoken regularly on this about the structure of English cricket and how it hasn't helped produce red ball cricketers. It hasn't helped produce anybody that can bat for 6 or 7 hours and ground the opposition into the dirt. There's only Joe Root that has done that for England. There are some talented players in that English squad who have just not got the faintest idea, it seems to me, of how to play Test match cricket. That is their fault to some degree. So there was a lacking of passion and fight and resolve, I think, with that English team. But I also think they are not helped by the system in English cricket, the system that plays the Championship before the summer in England has actually officially started, and loads the system up with white ball cricket through the months where traditionally the sun shines. So there's a lot for England to do. I mean, I'm sure we'll go through a period where they talk about reviewing the system. They talk about trying to, they say the right things, but there's a difference between saying the right things and doing the right things and actually meaning that they want to save Test cricket. Because I think actually Test cricket is in jeopardy at the moment. Every country's got its white ball formats. England have got two now, one of which nobody else plays. And they fill up the calendar in the summer. I'm not against having white ball tournaments at all. I love them. I really enjoy watching white ball cricket. But there has to be a balancing act between promoting white ball cricket and getting the money from the white ball games and enjoying those as tournaments and giving the players the ability to play in those, and actually sticking your might and your money and your marketing and your thoughts and your emphasis behind the red ball game as well. And that second part has just disappeared in English county cricket at the moment. You get county fans buying their memberships, watching a load of cricket in April and May where it's cold and wet and grey, and then they don't see their championship side at home probably until August. And that is not looking after spectators. It's not looking after the sport. It's not actually furthering the players and their ability to play red ball cricket. It is not doing the job. The ECB need to look at themselves. There's a big clamour at the minute, Lucas, for Joe Root to resign, for Chris Silverwood to resign. There is probably some merit in both of those things. But those two go today. It doesn't change how cricket is operating in England. And we will only be talking about this in another 4 years' time, saying exactly the same things with two different people being called to resign. They need to actually look at how cricket is being promoted and how a youngster in England is his path, a talented youngster in England with the bat, his pathway through the sport. How does that work? And at the moment, they're being told to play reverse sweeps, slogging it over mid-wicket. They're being encouraged to make 30 off 16 balls to get franchise contracts, and they are not being taught how to bat for 7 hours to score 280 to win a match in red ball. And that is what is ostensibly wrong with the sport at the moment in England.
Now, I know we're an analytic show. We have to talk about the actual game, but we're not actually going to do that today because I actually want to talk about more about the setup. Because if we talk about the game,
Sorry, Lucas. Can I just say one more thing? I thought Australia. I mean, don't get me wrong. Australia played very well, and they deserve to retain the Ashes. I
Yep.
thought that spell Cummins and Starc bowled on the second evening was absolutely glorious.
Yep.
And I'm a cricket fan. I appreciate good cricket, and they play good cricket.
Yeah.
So I don't mind Australia winning the Ashes, and they deserve to win the Ashes. What disappoints me is that England have been so far away from being equal in this contest. They have not competed.
Yeah, and I want to actually talk about, because we can talk about what went wrong for England, because everything went wrong for England. We've been talking about what went wrong for England since they got off the plane. And you know, since the first day of the Brisbane Test to now, it's 20 days. They've lost the Ashes in 20 days, and now they had
to quarantine for longer than they've played for.
Exactly. You know, and you have players on social media going off. You know, don't blame the players. It's the system. I want to actually talk more about this system, because, like I said, we can talk about England this lineup until the cows come home. You know, same old stuff replacing the same old stuff, like Crawley replacing Burns replacing Crawley, etc., etc. Let's go back to what you said about white ball cricket. Now, this is my view of white ball cricket. Yeah, well, not so much white ball cricket, so much IPL cricket, Big Bash, and now, for goodness, the 100. My God, I think players, as you said today, care too much of getting money. Now, I don't know how much money the ECB pay England, the Test players, how much money they get. But I know in Australia, they get a lot of damn good money. A lot of high-paid millions of dollars. And in some way, you know, this kind of was the problem last year against India. I don't want to bring this up either, because this actually hurts me. But we got our ass kicked, and rightly so. We got our pants pulled down by a bunch of guys. I'm not trying to be disrespectful here, but the Indian B team was a bunch of I damn hell didn't. A bunch of B team players like Shakur, who's now actually playing in South Africa right now. Siraj, who's actually a pretty good bowler. Washington, these no names we never even heard of, come to Brisbane and absolutely wallop us. And that was the kick in the butt we needed. It opened our eyes. You know, we cannot keep picking the same old squad. We cannot keep going down this way. And this series, you've seen the players like Scott Boland, who was unbelievable today. Unbelievable today. You know, Michael Nisa, who's done well in the Sheffield Shield. Jai Richardson, we all know what he can do. He's done well in Sheffield Shield season. I think I think England deserves a 5-0. Maybe it will wake them up. Maybe it will wake them up and say, you know what, this 4-year plan we had for the World Cup, we now need to do it for the Test team. And if it doesn't, James, if they're saying, well, we go to I think they've got West Indies, haven't they? They've got the West Indies after this.
Yeah.
I'm thinking this is what they'll do. They'll get smashed 5-0 by Australia, pending if COVID interrupts. They'll go to West Indies. West Indies are a joke right now to Test cricket. They'll beat the West Indies, and England will say, you know what, everything's okay. It's okay, you know. But at the end of the day, James, the bigger picture, it's not okay, because the Ashes is the pinnacle of what England is all about. It doesn't revolve about one series, but every English player dreams of playing in the Ashes, just like every Australian player dreams of playing in the Ashes. You just cannot forget a performance like this. Go somewhere else and probably win. I think they will beat West Indies, in my opinion. And then say, you know what, that's okay. That's okay. We bet West Indies. We'll go home. We'll beat whoever we can at home. It's all good. Forget about the Ashes. I think that's a bad attitude. They did that in 2018, James, when they got belted 4-0. If it wasn't for that flat MCG pitch and Alistair Cook making that double 100 at the MCG. You know, and they did nothing. They had the same old attitude. You know what? We'll go back home. We'll win the Ashes in England, and everything's all right. That is such bad attitude. And I have a feeling they'll do exactly the same thing again. So I actually agree with you. when you say you can get rid of the coach right now tonight, he resigns. Joe Root, I don't see the benefit of Joe Root leaving. We've had discussions this before. There's no one else, but Chris Silverwood can go right now. I still think the mentality will be the same, James.
I agree. I think Chris Silverwood. Well, firstly, I think players have to take some responsibility because they've not performed. Somebody like an Ollie Pope hasn't performed anywhere near what we know he can perform like. Even though his ceiling maybe isn't quite as high at the moment as I'm hoping it might be, he's not performed anywhere near that either.
Yeah.
So and the fight shown today, just rolling over for 68, was awful. Once Joe Root was out, it was a procession, wasn't it? And they just went. So that the players have to take some responsibility, and I'm sure they've sat in the dressing room, and I'm sure, like you said, when you're a young kid, an Indian person watching this will be saying, why do they put so much store in the Ashes? And I agree with you to a degree, because playing India is a massive challenge. Playing playing other countries is great as well. It's not downgrading those matches, but when you're a young Australian or when you're a young Englishman, there is something about the Ashes which is magical and special. That little urn is the prize that if you're a youngster and you're trying to be a cricketer and you want to be an international, your dream is to captain England or Australia in an Ashes series, probably abroad, and winning the Ashes. And England have gone so far away from being capable of doing that at the moment. Australia haven't won in England since 2001. It works both ways, this. So, I mean, and I don't think this is a vintage Australian side either. I think a good English side going over there with the right attitude could have actually caused this Australian side a lot of problems, but been so far away from that, it's been appalling. Going back to the money side of things, I've got no objection with a cricketer, a professional cricketer with talent, making a lot of money and filling his boots and making a lot of money for his talent. I've got no objection with players going off to play in the franchise cricket stuff and making money. Look after yourself. It's a short career. There's no issue with that. And it's not your responsibility as a player to make the game work right. It is the responsibility of the administrators. It's the responsibility of the governing bodies, the cricket boards, to actually build a system where you can have both things, where you can actually have white ball tournaments which entertain people and bring in the crowds and make some money and keep the game kicking on, but also have red ball competitions where they actually mean something, where there's a focus there, where there's a drive for each of those sides to be the best they can possibly be and win the Sheffield Shield or win the county championship and promote cricketers who are capable of then going on to play test cricket. I think white ball cricket has actually done the bowlers a lot of service. I think the bowlers are actually coming out of T20 tournaments with a few more strings to their bow and better. And when they're able to combine those two and go into the test match arena with a few more tricks up their sleeve, they're actually not any worse for the white ball game. It's the batsmen that are suffering from white ball cricket. Their techniques are being adapted to hit the ball for six and be as strong, power hitters and strong. And the foundations of their game, which, when I was a kid, you grew up, you were playing in the V, you were playing your four defensives, you're doing all those kind of things. You had that foundation of a game, which then you were then able to maybe add a few bells and whistles to and be a bit more aggressive. That isn't the case anymore. We've got youngsters coming in that their first reaction is to want to hit a six. Their first thing is to want to play the paddle sweep. The first thing is to want to hit the ball in the air. That is not fostering red ball talent and red ball players that go into the test arena and are able to bat for more than one day and to really grind the opposition into the dirt. The patience isn't there. I think the talent is still there. It's just not being honed in the right way. People criticise having 18 counties in England and saying we've got far too many first-class players. Well, I don't subscribe to that, because what sport suffers from having more professionals in it? No sport should suffer from having more professionals in it. What they suffer from is not having the drive to prioritise county championship cricket. What they suffer from is not having every game matters. I always used to say 18 counties, play as many county championship cricket as you can. I've gone away from that now. I think we need to actually reduce the number of county championship matches, but actually make each of those county championship matches matter and mean something and be be a stepping stone to success. And I've interviewed a lot of overseas players. I remember sitting down with Jason Gillespie. I've got a lot of time for Dizzy. The one thing he said that was different to playing domestic cricket, he said, I love playing cricket in England. I love playing the county championship, but you never get a day off. And you don't. In the English summer, I've covered county cricket home and away as a journalist, and you never get a day off. Maybe 3 in the summer. And because the day, you look at the calendar, you think, well, there's 2 days there, there's 3 days there. But you realise that your county is in Sussex and their next match is against Durham. You're spending one of those days off travelling to the next destination to play the next game. You're spending the next day off practicing, trying to get ready for the next game and just chilling out to relax after a match in between. You never get time off to actually sit down as a county and look at the next match. Look at who's playing in the next match. Look at what bowlers you're going to be facing in the next match. Look at what conditions you might be playing in. Look at your own game and actually think, well, actually, I'm suffering at the minute. I'm playing too many balls outside of the off stump. Let's have a long net to sort this out. You don't get that chance between county fixtures at the moment. So let's limit the county championship to 10 matches per county. Give them time off in between so they can actually practice and get ready for the next game. Let's not play all of those 10 matches in April and May and September. Let's play them throughout the summer, because one of the things that we're missing at the moment is that England struggle in a test match in July. They've got 2 batsmen that are patently out of form. A, they can't send those batsmen off to their county to get a championship match to try and regain form. And B, there's nobody in the county system that's saying, I've just scored 250. I'm waving at the selectors to say, pick me. You've got somebody in your team that's out of form. I'm in massive form at the minute. I've scored loads of championship runs recently. Pick me, because they're not playing championship cricket in those months. So there are massive problems with English cricket at the moment, and it's all stemmed from 2015 World Cup. Ever since the 2015 World Cup, that's when they started talking about having a white ball tournament, which turned into being the 100. And they've put all of their planning and all of their things have been in place to win the 2019 World Cup, which was fantastic. Winning that was brilliant. I'm not going to say that was a bad thing. But nobody was criticising 18 counties when England won the 2019 World Cup. Nobody was criticising having 18 counties when England put a team into the T20 World Cup, which had a real chance of winning it. Nobody, people have been lauding Owen Morgan and his team for how they've played, and quite rightly, because it's been a fantastic time for English white ball cricket. But that's taken the eyes off red ball cricket completely. And we can't afford to do that. If you love test match cricket, if the Ashes means anything to you, if you're an Indian fan watching this and you think, playing England in England is a challenge that gets your juices flowing, and you care about test match cricket, then England's got to do something about how it plays championship cricket, how it plays red ball cricket, and how it prioritises that. I've just got one last point before I stop my rant. You mentioned,
we'll continue this point. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about that. So keep going.
You mentioned how much the central contracts were worth for test match players.
ECB. Yeah.
I've got no issue with them being worth a lot of money.
Yep.
Pay the test match players a lot of money. Make them think that test match cricket is important. And but one of the things I did see was that the one central contracted player, if you're playing all formats, your pay for a year is more than the entire budget for the Afghanistan national team. There is an imbalance in the way the world works at the moment.
Well, I've mentioned that with other people on other shows, especially with Michael Wagner. I think you might know him, about New Zealand. They get paid absolute peanuts compared to players on all format contracts. Sorry. So I can't go into the ECB related things because I don't know I don't know how much they pay and what's their pay like, or and how they get paid. All I can say is that you mentioned that you don't have a problem with players earning money. I got no problem with players earning money whatsoever. I have a problem with test players. Let's use Manus Labuschagne here.
Yeah,
Manus Labuschagne is although it hasn't been tested outside of Australia, his ceiling is so high right now. Arguably Australia's best player with David Warner on current form. I've also mentioned this on other shows about Steve Smith's form. I would hate to see Marnus Labuschagne. This is just me. Go to the IPL and say, you know what, I want to earn more money. Okay, that part's fine. He goes to the IPL for a year. He brings back IPL shots to Test match cricket, which you've mentioned, and then he gets out using those shots. I've seen, like you've mentioned, players have done it all the time, and I hate it. I absolutely hate it. Now, I've got no problems with David Warner doing that because David Warner, by nature, is aggressive like that. But, you know, when you start your career at Test match cricket or domestic cricket and you go to Test match to IPL or Big Bash or the 100, and then you start using those shots in Test match cricket and it gets you out, that's the big problem I have with these competitions and with these players trying to take money just so they can, you know, boost their lifestyles, which is okay. No problem with that. But do not use the IPL. Do not use Big Bash. Or let's use T20 because we don't want Indian cricket fans or Australian fans saying, "Oh, you're using the Big Bash." Let's say T20. Do not use T20 shots in Test match situations where you're known as a grinder.
I don't agree with that, Lucas. I think that some of the elements of T20 coming into Test cricket has actually made Test cricket better. I think you know, every player is responsible for their own game. If Marnus Labuschagne wants to go and play IPL, fair enough. I don't no issue with that at all. If he comes back in and plays a reverse sweep that he might not have played before, and he practices it, and he hones that technique, and he plays some shots that are a little bit more expansive, no issue with that at all. If he gets out with them, that's his responsibility. That's his personal responsibility. I just think you need to. I mean, you look at England's team and you go down their batting order. Hasib Hamid doesn't play T20 cricket. You've got. Who was he opening with? Zach Crawley started to play white ball cricket a little bit. Rory Burns, though, isn't known for his white ball cricket. Joe Root's not been playing franchise cricket, although I think he wants to now. You know, you go down the list of England's top order. You know, David Malan's number one in the T20 World Cup rankings, but you look at the way David Malan plays the game. He's got a very solid base to his game, which he then expands a little bit in T20. He doesn't really go bonkers in T20, so I don't think he's necessarily a case in point either. So England's top order aren't white ball freaks. They're not people that are going all over the world playing white ball cricket and then trying to then get back used to Test cricket. Their game is just not. Their game is probably a red ball game. It's just not a good enough red ball game. And what we need to look at is why it's not good enough in England. Why are we sending somebody like, why is Ollie Pope, for example, who I've got a huge amount of time for? I'd love to be as talented as him. But why is Ollie Pope finding it so easy to score runs in the county championship? The majority of which are at the Oval. Yeah, I hadn't realised last time we spoke that he averages a ridiculous amount at the Oval and far less in county cricket elsewhere. But even so, he's a very talented player. What is it about the step up to Test cricket which stops him showing that talent higher up the food chain? Obviously, when you're facing Pat Cummins and Mitchell Starc on an evening in Melbourne and they're bowling as well as they bowled, you're not going to. Yeah, I'd defy any team in the world to get through that hour and not lose wickets because they bowled brilliantly. Pat Cummins is as good as it gets for me in terms of bowling. And Mitchell Starc, he may have expensive overs, but he also bowls wicket-taking deliveries, and he's a class act. He's taken 270 Test wickets, for goodness sake. So, you know, I defy any team in the world to get through that hour without losing a wicket, or at least looking like they're going to lose a wicket. The disappointment is that there is a difference. The thing that illustrates how you can play that is that Joe Root goes in. He manages to get through that to close a play. Other players go in and they don't get through that to close a play. You rock up on day 3 and England are all out for 68. Joe Root's the only one that looks like he can bat. Still, Ben Stokes plays a cameo. I'll take Johnny Bairstow out of the criticism because I thought he was very unlucky. The ball was flicking the top of his leg bail. You know, you can get out to that. You cannot get out to that. But It's the application. Where is the application? Where is the fight? Where is the technique to actually see you through those sort of sessions? It's not there.
No, I want to go back to what you said with Ollie Pope, with doing it in first class cricket and doing it in international cricket. Now we've seen players like Scott Boland, who's taken a tremendous amount of wickets, averaging 10 this season. Mind you, he's only played 2 games. Because of, Victoria, his state team, has been affected by COVID. Rest of the state have played 5-6 games. He's came in, he's taken 15 wickets in 2 matches, average of 10. Last year, when India absolutely embarrassed Australia, Justin Langer made a ridiculous comment saying, when he got asked, he said, well, Starc was out of form, which he was. You could have used Sheffield Shield players. Justin Langer fired back unnecessarily, quite blasphemous in my opinion, and said, well, who do you want us to play? I thought that was a very arrogant statement to make.
I do think though, Lucas, that the bowlers are a different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
I think you can pull bowlers out of first class cricket, and even the ones that play T20 a lot, they're good at potentially good enough to step up to Test cricket if their record suggests so. It's the batsmen with good records in first class cricket that are not translating it into Test matches.
Yeah, and it's because they think that. How should I say this without disrespecting Ollie Pope? He played. Who does Ollie Pope play for? Surrey, isn't it? Surrey. I'm just trying to think of Surrey bowlers off the top of my head. Craig Overton.
Jamie Overton went to Surrey.
Yeah. Okay. Who else? Who else? Is there any high end bowlers that played for England or pushing?
Liam Plunkett's currently at Surrey.
Yep.
Sam Curran.
Yep. Okay. Yep. So Sam Curran is a kind of a fifth option. I think you've had problems with Sam Curran being picked in the past, but when you have these batsmen playing these guys in the nets, I think they get too carried away. When you get out in the net, which happens, you can get out 6-7 times in the net. It's all good. You forget about it. When you translate that to a game, you get out once, you're gone. You can't just say, oh, don't worry, I'll just reset.
We've all been in the nets where you've basically creamed a cover drive and it's been,
of course,
and it's rattled into the net and you thought, I've absolutely murdered that. But it's actually been 2 foot off the floor and you've been caught by cover.
Exactly. I think all batsmen get carried away with that because they don't have the muscle memory to think, well, you know what, that's all good. I'm going to continue batting. But in the middle, they don't think that. They think, well, I'm out. I have to go. I think with batsmen that coming from these county sides, Sheffield Shield sides, Ranji Trophy for India, they don't think about that. And when they when they translate to international cricket, and they play shots that they would in the nets, and as it should be, domestic level is a huge step up from international cricket, as it should be.
Yeah.
I don't think they have the mentality, or let's say their egos, to think, you know what, I've played a bad shot in the nets, but that doesn't translate to the actual game in the middle. So they play a good shot, which is really a bad shot. They don't think about that. They play the same shot in the Test arena or the international arena, get out to it, and they think, oh, geez, why did I get out to a shot like that for? They don't have the muscle memory, and I think that's a problem. I think that side of the game, whether it's England, whether it's Australia, India, that doesn't get looked at quite enough for me, in my opinion.
I think you're right, and I think, Joe Root keeps mentioning this over my dead body attitude, and that's what Test cricket is, really, isn't it? It's, I am going to basically sell my wickets so expensively.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and score runs while I'm here, but I'm going to try and blunt your attack. I'm going to be here in an hour. I'm going to be here in 3 hours. I'm going to be here tomorrow. Unless I get a wicket-taking ball that's got my name on it, I'm going to be here tomorrow, and I'm going to still be scoring runs against you. In the nets, you don't have that. You have a half an hour net, and they talk about players. Oh, he looked great in the nets. Zach Crawley's a great example of that. They bigged him up before this third test, saying a lot of journalists sort of saying, well, he's not played for ages. He's averaging 11 in the last 12 months. Oh, he's been looking fantastic in the nets. We think he's got the game for Australia. Well, you can look great in the nets. You can be playing your pull shots, your cut shots. You can be, as I say, driving to cover. It's rattling off the middle of your bat. You're looking brilliantly. You're looking brilliant. But we saw with Zach Crawley, you know, you're facing Cummins and Starc with a new ball. It's about, you know, the most important, it sounds boring, but it's not. The most important shot for an opening batsman is the leave. Labuschagne's making a career out of knowing what to leave and what to play.
Agree with that heavily.
Yeah. And that the temptation in the nets is to want to hit everything, isn't it? Whereas the leave alone shot is the most important shot. And I mean, poor old Zach Crawley, I feel for him because he's been thrown a hospital pass. You know, you basically you've not played since the summer in red ball cricket. You've been in the nets. You've been in a COVID bubble, whatever. There's been no practice games to play, and you basically watch the first 2 test matches. They then say, Zach, right, you've got your chance at the MCG Boxing Day test match. You got tens of thousands of people in there. You've not played for ages. You're trying to resurrect your test match career, which you've been struggling with, against that bowling attack. It's so unfair for Zach Crawley to have been presented with that as he should not have been in that squad. He should have been told to go back to Kent, work on your game, score hundreds in the county championship, come back and be better next time we see you. He's had none of that chance to prepare. And I mean, I don't know what coaches are paid for in the international setup either. England have got 22 backroom staff in Australia. They've got a coaching setup there. I know Ant Botha. I like Ant a lot. I think he's a terrific bloke, and I'm sure he's a really good coach. But that hopping on one leg practice in the nets, I know it's to create balance and stuff like that, but it just looks ridiculous, doesn't it? And I mean, people are criticising Rooty. They're criticising Silverwood. Ashley Giles is hardly mentioned, but Ashley Giles is the director of cricket. He seems to have passed all responsibility to Chris Silverwood. He sat there on more money, in charge of it all, and he's without any kind of recrimination at the moment. You look at the coaches that England have. Ashley Giles has either played with every single one of them, coached every single one of them, or is mates with some of them. There is nobody from outside that I can think of that is in that coaching setup. Now, there's only a slight issue with that, because if I was going to be made the director of English cricket, I'd want to surround myself with guys that I trust too, and guys that I know, and I know what they can bring to the party. So yeah, I can understand why you'd basically give jobs to people you know, but you also want to give jobs to some people you don't know, don't you? You want some thoughts coming in from outside. I think if England look back at the recruitment process after Bayliss went, I know why they looked at Silverwood. I'm not saying Silverwood's a bad coach. He took Essex to the title. He did a lot of good stuff with Essex. And he's a cricket man. He knows what he's talking about. I'm not going to knock him at all. Whether he's the right man for the job is a totally different thing. And the proof's in the pudding. Things aren't really working out for him at the moment, are they? I thought his interview after the MCG test, when he was still talking about taking the positives from it. You've been bowled out for 68, man. There are no positives to take. There is nothing positive about being beaten in 7 days. Actually say to people that was a bag of absolute rubbish. And I am sorry for people watching this. I am sorry for people in England that have been up overnight watching that, quite frankly, dross. You had you bowled the team out for 280 or whatever it was, and you've lost in an innings. There are no positives to take from that. At least get your story straight on that, because there are no positives to take from that at all.
You know,
they should have gone for, you know, the person, one of the people that was up for the job when Silverwood was interviewed was Gary Kirsten. I think going for somebody like Gary Kirsten would have been a better option, because Silverwood knows how to bowl. Silverwood knows how to, and fair enough, you can employ batting coaches, but Gary Kirsten made a living out of scoring gritty test match runs. And that's the bit of the jigsaw that England are missing. If they could get out of their top 6, 3 people that know how to score gritty test match runs and bat a little bit more like Joe Root does. 3 Joe Roots in that top order, that England side would be a good team. And so they're not too far away. If you get a coach in there like Gary Kirsten that actually knows how to do that and knows how to advise people and can sit down with somebody over a meal at night and say to Ollie Pope, this is what it takes, mate. This is what it takes for you to be a Test match player. That would be a step up for me.
Yeah, what I found a bit amusing from that Chris Silverwood interview is when he said, youngsters. What youngsters are you playing?
There's inexperience in there. But I mean, Ollie Pope's got 20 odd Test matches under his belt now.
Yeah. So I didn't get that. Youngsters as players that I've met. I want to go back to this. Players that I've mentioned. You mentioned the county championship. With all these young players. Now, I got this idea from. I don't know if you know her, but Not Skilled Jess, kind of a popularising figure. Okay. Does a couple of stuff for Nottinghamshire in the LV County, and one of her friends named Jack. He made a list with a bunch of a whole starting 11 under 23, and I've got this list here. So Rob Yates, Tom Lambenby.
Tom Lambenby.
Yep. Tom Haynes, Ollie Pope, Kieran Carlson, who I've actually mentioned on this show quite a few times. Harry Brook, Ollie Robinson has wicketkeeper. Is there another Ollie Robinson with a wicketkeeper?
There's two Ollie Robinsons in English county cricket. Both of them were born on the same day. Crazy.
Well, that's an absolute nightmare. Amir Virdi, sorry. Ethan Bamber, I've heard of him. Jack Carlson and Ben Adishton. Now, the reason I mention this, he and Jess said we should send these young players to overseas domestic tournaments like Sheffield Shield, Ranji Trophy. Why should Australia and why should Indian players come over here and learn our game while we can't send our players over there? And they were quite actually very passionate about this. They said that if you send a couple of those youngsters over to Ranji, to Sheffield Shield, and get them experienced enough on pitches that makes them learn to play on the front foot instead of the back foot in England, it will do their world a lot of good. Especially in the bowling, because they said, and I actually agree with this, they said it's too easy to bowl. It's too easy to take wickets in the county championship compared to Sheffield Shield and Ranji. And I actually agree with that. In Ranji, Sheffield Shield, bowlers work extremely damn hard because they know they're not going to get assistance from the pitch. And in LV County Championship, you just put it on a line and length, you can take a load amount of wickets. So
put it on a line and length, just nibble it around a little bit, and you'll get 8 for 43.
Height. Luke Fletcher, another one that I've mentioned heavily. Now, that's not to say Luke Fletcher's a bad bowler, but you don't like the term dibbly dollar. I hate that term dibbly dollar, but he'd be probably a perfect.
The likes of Luke Fletcher, Darren Stevens, and co. They're brilliant cricketers.
Yeah.
But it always amuses me with Steve-O that I really like him. He's been on my podcast a couple of times, and he's a great cricketer. He's a terrific cricketer on the county circuit. He's making the most out of the attributes he's got in the world that he lives in. But when you start to see people saying that Darren Stevens is the answer in Australia in the Ashes, he wouldn't be. And it's that's not disrespecting him. That is just true. I don't think Darren Stevens would make the difference to England in any shape or form in Australia. And it is the conditions you get in England. And people blame the pitches, people blame the groundsman. But if you're a groundsman in England and you're trying to create pitches in April and May, when it's a little bit misty and a little bit wet and damp and it's not the greatest weather.
And also it does also nothing for spinners. I think that's what England needs, a world-class spinner, and they haven't got that since Graham Swan.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there are. It's not as simple as saying play the championship all the way through the summer, which I do. It's not as simple as saying the pitches aren't good enough. They need to be better, but that's a lot to do with the climate and a lot to do with the situation the ground staff are in when they're making those pitches. So that's part of it as well. There are a number of kind of layers to the first class jigsaw in England, and it's about also giving. My way of doing it now would be to have 3 divisions of 6 teams, and have promotion and relegation between those 3 divisions. Probably only allow overseas players in the top division, and actually make the teams in Division 3 bring through homegrown players. As I said before, people that say concentrate the talent and have fewer teams. I don't know any sport that benefits from having fewer players, but concentrate those players' minds. Have a first division where there's 6 teams in it. You're only playing 10 matches in the season to be the champion county. Have it so that you get every game matters in a season. Try and create a situation where pitches matter and good pitches matter, and the ability to take wickets on pitches that are good for batting matters. And do it so that it runs as a thread through the summer. Do it so there's gaps in between so players can prepare. At the moment, if you're a first-class cricketer, I mean, I used to talk a lot to Joe Sayers when I was at Yorkshire. He was basically very much just a red ball player. He was an opening batsman, and he was pretty dour opening batsman. He played within himself, and he ground out the runs. And I often think about Joe and how he would be, going through modern day cricket, because you've got if you're a red ball batsman and you've got no desire to play T20 and you've got no desire to try and be a white ball player in England, effectively your summer is playing a load of cricket in April and May when the conditions aren't really in your favour. So what's the point? And then you have to sit out, but you probably play second team cricket through this rest of the summer. And then you come back in August and September primarily, when again it's not that easy for batting. So what's the incentive for a player to be like that? What's the incentive for a fast bowler? Mark Wood, I've got a huge amount of time for Mark Wood, because he's somebody that's had injuries, he's had issues, but he still wants to bowl at 150 kph all the way through a test match. What is the incentive for somebody to be like Mark Wood? Because those days where you get the glory are few and far between. Those days where you rock up in April and May playing Championship cricket and you're watching a Darren Stevens taking 8 wickets and you're bowling as quick as you can and you're not really getting that much help from the surface any more than he's getting. You're bending your back through a tortuous county scene where as I say, there's not too many days off. Like we've seen with Ollie Stone. Goes down injured left, right, and centre. He tries to bowl fast, but he gets injured all the time because he's putting his body on the line. The incentive to be a red ball opener and grind it out and be talented in that route, the incentive is not hugely there. The incentive to be a fast bowler is not hugely there. The incentive, as you say, to be a spinner is not hugely there in the current setup, because you're not going to get played in April and May. You're going to have to wait until August and September, and by then, who knows what the conditions are going to be like. So what's the incentive to do that? The areas that England are missing out on, top 3 batsmen, spinners and fast bowlers, are the areas that the county circuit does not promote. So
what's the solution to fix that? Like I just said, with that young players of that young list of players I gave you, would you legitimately send them to Ranji or to Sheffield Shield and say, go to that place over the winter and learn your trade?
Lucas, they won't take them. Why are they going to take them? Why are they going to be as stupid as England are? Who
won't take them?
Well, will Cricket Australia accept English batsmen into the Sheffield Shield?
Absolutely.
Why?
Well, of course they will.
Where's the evidence for that?
Well, I can't. This is a topic I want to get very passionate about, because I'll answer your question in a minute. I'm a Redbacks fan. We are struggling for any kind of spinner, any kind of batsman. We haven't won a game in 3 damn years.
You're not going to be looking towards England for that.
Exactly. Yeah. But point is, I would love to get someone from England.
Yeah, you might do. You might do. And cricket lovers might see the benefit. But Cricket Australia are not actually actively encouraging English batsmen to go and play Sheffield Shield, are
they? And to answer that question, where's the evidence? Well, I can't see any evidence that they do or they won't. Well, because I don't think England players have asked.
I guarantee you, if the Sheffield Shield put out a memo to English counties this summer and said, anybody want to come over and play an overseas stint in Sheffield Shield this your winter, you would get applications left, right, and centre. Because you've got at the moment, you get English county players go over to Australia for their winters. They play grade cricket. They go to New Zealand, but they play grade cricket. Because they can't get into the Sheffield Shield sides because the Sheffield Shield sides are looking after their own and playing their own players. And there's nothing wrong with that from a Sheffield Shield perspective. I don't. That's not a problem. Bring your own through and make them better. But you can't. Equally, the BCCI, I don't think they'd take English players in the Ranji Trophy because there's no evidence to suggest that. There's only England that actually opens its doors for overseas players. We watched the likes of Labuschagne come across, play a season with Glamorgan, hone his game, get better, and then come back and haunt us.
Well, if I'm the ECB, this is why I get passionate. If I'm the ECB, I'm telling Australian players to get nicked. If you're not letting our players go over there and dictate and learn their traits in different conditions, why the hell are we accepting your invitations to come here?
Because England have got a holistic approach. They realise it's good for county cricket, and that English fans like watching overseas players. I've grown up watching, through the 80s, watching Gordon Grange and Desmond Haynes playing county cricket, watching Malcolm Marshall flying in for Hampshire, watching Viv Richards, Paul Garner at Somerset, watching overseas players, the very best in the world, would come to England, play a year's, play regularly for their county, play all the way through the summer. That doesn't happen anymore because you get tours in the English summers. They come and they go, but it's part of English domestic cricket. And it's good.
But would you? Sorry,
just one more point.
Keep on.
It's good for It's good for county cricket because fans get to see the stars. It's good for the players that play county cricket because they get to rub shoulders with Viv Richards or his current equivalent in a dressing room. A young batsman at Glamorgan that spent that summer with Marnus Labuschagne won't have been held back by that. He'll have learnt from watching Labuschagne develop and prosper and how he goes about his game. That can only be good for that player. Where it doesn't, as you say, where it doesn't work is that English youngsters don't get the benefit elsewhere because Cricket Australia, BCCI, would not have that same approach. I guarantee you, Lucas, you get somebody from Cricket Australia on this podcast, they won't have things in place for having a young Joe Root going across to play a season for South Australia. They won't have it. A young Joe Root actually did go across to Australia. He went to the Darren Lehman Academy. He worked in South Australia.
Yes.
But he did. There would have never have been a thought process that he would have played Sheffield Shield matches.
It's interesting that you say that because Joe Root has an academy of his own over here. And there are players from his academy that are playing in grade cricket in South Australia. I know this very well because I've met one of them. He wants to play for Surrey. Great batsman, very great batsman. So I understand that, when you brought up the Darren Lehman, I know that for damn well because I know one of the players that does it. But I want to actually ask you this: if England came out of the blue, the ECB, and said, you know what, screw the overseas players, you're not coming over, would you really care about that? Sorry, I wouldn't say you, but would the fans really care about that? Yes, you're not going to see the Labuschaignes. I know Travis Head goes over there and Peter Hanscom. Peter Hanscom actually captains the side, for goodness sake. Would they actually care if the ECB said, we're actually going to produce our young players and not get these players overseas?
I could list you 40 players from Australia that have come over and made a living out of English county cricket.
I know most of them. Trust me.
Without even thinking about it.
Yeah, I know most of them, trust me.
Ponting played for Somerset. Dizzy came over and played for Yorkshire and Glamorgan.
Shane Warne.
Yeah, absolutely. They've all done it. And would we care? I think we would. It's not. Okay. It's nice. It's nice when you. I think for members, it's a nice thing when you're buying your club membership and you're looking forward to your 12 county championship matches of the season, and you're thinking, well, Marnus Labuschaigne's playing 8 of them for me. It's going to be great to see Marnus playing county cricket for me. I think that's a definite cherry on top for the supporter.
Okay. Is ECB dependent on that?
ECP is not dependent on county championship cricket. Full stop. The thing that makes the money for the ECB is the T20 Blast and the 100.
Just like Australia with the Big Bash.
And it's not to be underestimated how much some of the non-test match counties, well, all of the non-test match counties rely on T20 Blast gate receipts to keep their coffers going. So you could make an argument to suggest that if you missed some of the star names in the championship, if you missed star names in the Blast and the 100, that would probably have more of an impact. Because if you're trying to create white ball franchise type tournaments that are trying to fight for a global audience against the IPL, Big Bash, and Caribbean Premier League, Pakistan Super League, etc. By virtue of that, you need the overseas stars in it, don't you?
No, I'm sorry, James, but I think that's blasphemous. I think that the premium tournament or series is the Red Bull domestic game, whether it's in Australia,
Lucas.
England, or India. That's just me.
I totally agree with you, but it's not the revenue raiser.
Yeah, I get that. I understand that perfectly, but the ECB had no business making the 100. It wasn't like they were going broke. When T20
views on the 100.
Yeah, but they had absolutely no business. And damn it, if any you just mentioned there's any Australian come to this podcast, any Australian CEO watching this damn podcast and even thinks about making their damn own 100, forget about it. Because when do we stop? Okay, we're making 100 in Australia. We're going to make 100 in India. Okay, what's the next thing we can do and just destroy our game even more? The Sheffield Shield suffers from that badly.
I want you to get somebody on here from Cricket Australia or from one of the state sides and ask them that question. If a Joe Clark, if a Dan Lawrence, if a Rob Yates made himself available to come across and be even a squad member of your Sheffield Shield side, getting the occasional game if he was good enough.
In the Redbacks team, you got to be. I think Marcus Descoffit can come out of retirement and you'd be a certain starter for the Redbacks. Trust me.
I'm being polite. I'm phrasing this in the polite fashion. Would you sign him? Would you play him? Because I don't think you would. I don't think they would.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if they are, you talk to a lot of state cricketers or county championships, James. So you can send them to me.
Well,
you talk to a lot of them.
I'll tell you now. I do speak to a lot of them, and you ask them when their best times were. They say, I played out a couple of seasons grade cricket in Sydney, and I did this, that, and the other. And the youngsters are all looking for ways to improve and develop and get better, playing in overseas conditions. But they go to play grade cricket in Australia. They go to spin clinics in India. They don't go and play for the teams there because the cricket boards in those countries don't allow that. There isn't a process for it. I agree. Well, whether you have an opinion on this, I think that's wrong. And that's where I think ECB are very arrogant and letting our players or every Tom, Dick, and Harry come to their county championship. That's not arrogance. That's doing the right thing. It's an arrogance actually saying we don't want overseas.
Okay. Well, I would agree to that because ECB have no association with Cricket Australia. There's no the county championships like the big brother of Sheffield Shield. There's nothing like that. It's totally different things. But if you're going to let Sheffield Shield players come to the county championship, then damn it, if I'm the ECB, I'm ringing up Cricket Australia and saying, well, I want to send two of our guys from each county over there and play and actually get game time. And if you're not going to do that, well, I'm sorry, we're going to block you from coming over here. I wouldn't mind that. I would agree to that.
Yorkshire, which is the county I support. They've just signed up a deal with the Lahore Qalandars, Pakistan.
Yes, I heard that on your podcast. Yeah,
Pakistan Super League team, and they've got a Lahore Qalandars. I mean, obviously, there's a backdrop of the racism side of stuff that's been happening in Yorkshire and all that kind of stuff. And, they're looking to try and move things forward, but I think those kind of relationships are very, very good, or potentially very good, where you get a relationship with an equivalent team overseas, and it could be that it might be Yorkshire and South Australia, in terms of Australia. But Pakistan Super League, Lahore Qalandars have got a fantastic scheme where they go out into their areas, they go into the small villages, they go into the towns, they go into and they put nets up and they say, "Come down and you and showcase your talents." And they've been finding. I mean, Harris Ralph, he's a world star these days. He's a terrific international player. He's played Big Bash. He's played all over the place.
Yes,
4 years ago, he was playing take ball cricket in his village, and they went and found him. They said, "This lad's got the kind of raw materials to be a really good fast bowler." And the proof's in the pudding. He's come through and he's done that. And I think Yorkshire are going to try and use the same principles by going out into, because Yorkshire's a very big county. Not in terms of geographical, like your states are massive, but population density across a wide area is huge.
And it's a big club. It's a big franchise.
Yeah, and the so I think using some of the stuff that Lahore have done in going out into the sticks to find players, give players opportunities to actually come through over above and beyond the current pathway scheme. I think that's really good. So I think there's going to be some player exchanges. They're going to learn from each other. Harris Ralph's coming across to play cricket in Yorkshire. I'm sure some of the Yorkshire players will go across and be part of the Lahore setup in their various competitions. That to me is a very good way of doing it, because you're playing in different conditions, you're learning from different cultures. That's a very positive thing for me. And the same could be done between Yorkshire and South Australia. The same could be done between Yorkshire and Barbados.
Absolutely. I would agree to that 100%. But that's what the super team with Pakistan. That's a white ball cricket, isn't it? That's a white ball thing, isn't it?
They have first class games there in Lahore as well, don't they? Obviously.
Oh, of course, yeah. Oh, so ECB, they're covering all types of formats or just one format with their Pakistan team.
It's Yorkshire and the Lahore Qalandars. That's the relationship.
Okay. So is that just one format, or is it actually covering all of them?
Well, Harris Rav's coming across to play all formats, as I understand it.
Oh, well, okay then. That's actually something that I would actually love to see. And like I said, if ECB decided to block Sheffield Shield players or from anywhere else, I wouldn't necessarily mind that. I wouldn't be unhappy with that.
You think of a young up and coming talent like Joe Root when he was obviously younger. But a similar kind of figure in South Australia. Dizzy's in charge, isn't he, over there at the minute? I mean, he's great at bringing through youngsters and getting them playing the right way. And if he identified somebody and they had that overseas relationship with another country, sending that lad off to play in whatever country it doesn't have to be England, and to get some experience elsewhere and to learn how cricket works elsewhere. It's not just about playing, is it? It's about understanding how different cultures work, how different clubs operate, seeing it from a different angle. That's all good for a player.
I've mentioned that with Australian ranging. We've been absolutely smashed every time we go outside of Asia. We haven't won a damn series there since 2005, and I've made it quite publicly that publicly I'm only a little fish, but I've said, you know what, send him to ranging. I don't give a damn. Send him to Sri Lanka. I don't care how much it costs. Get them learning something different, and if they perform well, pick them. Pick them in the Australian team. At least they know. At least they'll be familiar with the conditions.
I had a conversation with Dan Norcross on the Cricket Badger podcast some time ago, or 18 months ago, whenever it was, last Christmas. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But we did a kind of wish list of things we would change about cricket in general. And one of the things that we both
where do we start, James?
Sorry?
Where do we start?
Well, listen to that podcast. There's a few ideas on there. But
that's what with those ideas. Where do they start? And how long have we got?
But one of the things we said was that the ICC need to be stronger, probably. But it needs to spread the wealth a little bit more around the world, because at the minute we've got India, Australia, and England, who the power bases of cricket and make all the decisions. But one of the things that Dan came up with was which I thought was a really interesting idea, was that every county should have a link with an associate nation. So that like a Netherlands player should come onto the books at Glamorgan, and a Kenyan player should come onto the books at Middlesex, say. And they don't have to play them. They're part of the squad. They're learning from the players they're playing with. And I think that that's an extension of what we've just been talking about. That if you start, the world's a small place these days. It's been made a bit bigger by COVID, but it's a small place, and you can start to create these little relationships around the world where, on a international basis, you're still in competition, but on a global basis, you're actually trying to help each other.
I agree with that heavily. That's a very good idea. I agree with that heavily, of course.
And it gets, if you're a young Netherlands player, and you come across and you benefit from playing in the Sheffield or playing in Australia, or playing in England, playing Caribbean or whatever, you're learning the conditions, you're learning. That's only good for you, and you take that back with you to the Netherlands, and you're a better player, a better person, a better human being, and hopefully have a better career as a result of that.
Well, I'm glad you used Netherlands as an example, because they'd be probably the most likely next Test licensed country to play Test cricket, Netherlands, and I can't think of his name. He's a South African player, a magnificent player. I think his technique was brilliant. I just forgot his name. Ryan ten Dutch.
Ryan.
Yeah. Mind you, South African, but I think he was another one that played heavily in the English county and scored tremendous amount of runs. Tremendous amount.
Until this last summer, he played for Essex.
Yeah, tremendous amount of runs, not just in white ball, but in the red ball. And I think it's an absolute tragedy that a player of his talent never played Test match cricket, because my God, I think he would have been good. Because I've actually seen him bat. Fantastic technique, fantastic. But a player like him, probably now he's retired, but a young up and coming Netherlands player that has the same talent as him, or close to it, would benefit hugely from going to another country, to learning a trait, to learning to play off a back foot or a front foot.
It's just how you'd operate it. To me, it's a no-brainer. It just makes sense from every single angle. It's just how it would operate and how you would do that.
Condi Rice says,
hello,
hi,
Condi.
James.
Hello, Condi. How are you?
One more question. We'll wrap this up. Back to the what's the Big Blast? Is it the Big Blast?
T20 Blast.
Yeah. The winner of that, when they get the prize money, does that go back towards towards that member? What I mean, so their T20 side is connected to the county side, isn't it? But they just use different names, don't they? Does that money go?
Yorkshire's team is the Yorkshire Vikings. It's the same team.
Okay. So let's say the Yorkshire Vikings win and they get the prize money. Will they go back and spend that in the Yorkshire team, or will they use that money to get other players to the Vikings?
I'll tell you what happens generally. Is that the prize money that a team wins for winning a competition tends to get divided by the players.
Okay.
The vast majority of the prize money ends up in the players' bank accounts, not the club.
So it actually doesn't get pumped through to Yorkshire.
No.
See, I think that's shockingly horrible, because the Sheffield Shield and
the mitigating circumstance, the kind of counter argument would be that your journeyman county cricketer that never plays international cricket isn't making a huge amount of money.
No, good point.
Over his, say, 10 years in a county dressing room, he's not making enough money to set him up for life or do, So, the 10 grand you might get bonus as a result of winning the T20 Blast, or 20 grand or whatever it turns out to be, ends up being a huge deal for that player.
No, that's fair. That's fair enough. I understand.
But does the county actually benefit from that? It benefits in terms of maybe increased sponsorship and then increased revenue from people maybe buying tickets. But
that's what I kind of mean. Yeah.
In terms of actually getting the revenue from the prize pot, when that check's handed over to the captain or whatever in the ceremony, the county gets a bit, but it doesn't get a huge amount.
Okay. Well, this is why I hate the Big Bash, because at least with your T20 Blast, you're actually using your state name. With the Big Bash and strikers, the poor, for example, the poor Redbacks, have been struggling for many years. Strikers can win 5 Big Bashes in a row. Goes to the Saka. The Saka will not pump money into the Redbacks. They'll pump money back into the strikers to get better players. I think that is so wrong. I think that is a disgrace. That just doesn't happen with the Saka, but that happens with Cricket Tasmania, New South Wales Cricket Board, Victoria Cricket. I think that is absolutely load of BS that happens. This another thing that I'm hugely passionate, if you can tell. The Redbacks have struggled. I'm just using an example because they're pathetic at the moment. Have struggled to get any kind of players whatsoever or kind of money, so we can actually get off the bottom of the ladder and actually win a game. But the strikers who actually Adelaide team playing the State Mobile, they win the flag. Money gets poured into the Saka, which controls the Redbacks incidentally. Yeah. And they don't use that money on them. Like whether you just said sponsor corporate, it goes back to the strikers. And that is just a load of absolute bullshit for me. And in a way, at least you use your real name. And at least it gets pumped back to some degree. Unlike the Big Bash.
Apart from Warwickshire, who plays Birmingham Bears and have done for some
time.
Oh, okay. That's a one-off.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Con D Rice, what's your Twitter? Exactly the same name. So that's my Twitter. So I think we'll wrap the show up. James, we've gone down a bit of a different direction this show. And I know this is an analyst.
I think it's an important discussion to have, and we'll have it again because I think as cricket lovers, as cricket people that work in cricket, as cricketers, as whoever we are in terms of our relationship with the sport, we've all got a duty not just to enjoy the game and to kind of promote the game as it stands at the moment. We have a duty to hand it on to the next generations in a better position. And I think at the moment we are in very serious danger of actually handing it on to the further future generations in a poorer state than we've inherited it. And that's not a good thing.
And we've seen, nations, proud test nations like the West Indies, just been absolutely ruined by that nonsense. You look at all those players you just mentioned that played in the county championships, Courtney Rolchers, all those Byron Laras, Michael Holding, who got their nations to number one in the world, defeat Australia. Curtly Ambrose went wild in Perth. And that's now gone. That's just been ruined by, white ball cricket. They don't care about systems like that. And that's a real damn shame for me because West Indies is a proud cricket nation. And it'd be an absolute atrocity if Cricket England, Cricket Australia, or, India, three big powerhouse cricket nations go down that same path. That would be just demoralising. Even as an Australian fan, that would be very hard to see that if that happens to England.
One final point from me, Lucas. Yeah. I think cricket should be very grateful for the role Virat Kohli's played because Virat Kohli has a big fan base, a big following. Obviously, very high profile as captain of the Indian Test team and the other two formats. And he's always been a massive advocate. He's always spoken up for Test cricket.
Yeah, he has,
Yeah, and that I think we should be grateful for because when he speaks, people listen and it gets newspaper coverage and people respond to that. Hopefully we get some more people in the world of cricket who continue to speak up for Test cricket because it's important. Test cricket is the pinnacle. You can go off and you can play your T20 franchise. You can fill your pockets. You can score your 30 and 16 balls. You can have a lot of fun. It can be great entertainment. You set the fireworks off at the end of it, and people instantly forget that tournament's existed. And I can remember Test matches I watched when I was 7 years old.
Yeah,
it's a totally different thing. It matters. It's the feature film. It's the Godfather. It's the Shawshank Redemption. You get a narrative runs through those 5 days or 2.1 days and of the series, and it develops and players, I think, attain genuine legendary status by being terrific Test players. I've loved watching AB de Villiers playing in the IPL. He's a genius. He was fantastic at Test cricket as well because he's a talent. Some players can only do the white ball format. Doesn't mean they're not talented players. It just means they're talented in a different way. But you stick a Kieran Pollard in a Test arena, he would not be anywhere near the player that he is for Mumbai Indians in the IPL. And that's not disrespecting him. He's a fantastic player. I love watching him play as well. But to be a Test cricketer, you need to have an all-round game, stamina, technique, everything. You need to have it between your ears. You need to develop it over a certain number of days. It knackers you out. It injures you. It tests you to the limit. That's something that we need to preserve.
Absolutely. It's the only format where it challenges you emotionally, physically, and mentally. And
We've got to preserve it. We've got
yeah,
future generations watching
yeah,
this.
yeah.
Have your T20s, but preserve Test cricket because it is brilliant.
Yeah, if we weren't such a PG friendly show, I would have a bit of more advice for that. But yeah, kids out there, focus on your long game, not your short game. Focus on the longer format. Dig in. Be a grafter. Be a grafter.
My last point was my last point. It's not. This is. I can remember speaking to Michael Carberry, who had success in T20 cricket, came over and won with the Perch Scorchers in the Big Bash. But he said his game was. He basically built his game on his last game, had the defensive technique, knew what to leave, knew how to play his cover drive, his on drives, pull shots, all the rest of it. And then he added to that to play white ball cricket. That is the way you've got to develop your game. Get those foundations solid and then add the bells and whistles. Don't put the bells and whistles in first and expect to have a test career because it's not going to come.
It's way too easy to play white ball cricket than it is red ball cricket, in my opinion. So focus on your red ball, then go to white ball. And you mentioned Virat Kohli, he praises Test match cricket. Steve Smith's another one, but I've just mentioned West Indies. How can those legends who brought West Indies to number one in the world sit there and see that country or nation turn to absolute shambles? I wish some of these legends would actually speak out on behalf of Test cricket.
Well, they do. They do, I think. They do, but they don't get the newspaper coverage because it's not as fashionable over there, is it?
Yeah. No.
I know. I'm a friend with Desi Haynes on. I've met him a couple of times, and he's a friend of on Facebook and on LinkedIn. And he did a long, impassioned 10-point plan about how to make West Indies cricket great again. Goes under the radar because nobody's bothered.
Yeah. Well, anyway, James, like I said, thank you for going on a different direction because I think there was more because we could have just talked about the same old thing, but I think it was a bigger picture than just what's happened today.
Congratulations. Final point. Congratulations.
Yep. Just before that, James, Kondo Rice says count suspended. If you put the I in front of the A and then the N, then you'll get my name. Or James will he'll talk to James. He'll share my tweet. Go ahead, James.
Final point. Congratulations, all Australians, and to you, Lucas. Fully deserve to retain the Ashes, and hopefully, when you come across to England in 2022, we'll get it back off you.
I just hope I can be alive when they actually win a series in England. That would be nice. 2001. I barely remember that. I only remember snippets of that because I was too damn young. I was only 10 years old for crying out loud. So 2005 let down, 2009 let down, 2014 never in it. So if we can actually win a series, not retain, win, that would be swell for me. So of course my focus is now on the last two Test matches, but I think the bigger picture is Pakistan. We've done horrible in Asia, the worst probably out of New Zealand, England, and South Africa. Just can't win there no matter who we damn play. So I think the focus will now be on Pakistan more than the last two Test matches, and rightly damn so. But anyway, James, thank you for going a different direction with me. Look forward to hearing you in the next test. Hopefully we get some positivity for England, but they can't go anywhere, James. They can't pick any players. They have to pick the same old players. That's the problem.
Well, they've put themselves into a corner now. It's got to be Crawley. It's got to be those guys that walked out there for the third Test match. So we'll see. We see how that develops. Always positive about cricket, just not quite so positive about English cricket at the minute.
But anyway, James, thank you for joining me. We'll see you after the next Test match in Sydney. Really appreciate talking to you. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, Lucas. Cheers.
Okay, and that's it for the show, guys. Please like and subscribe. Please follow James Butler on Twitter, the Cricket Badger, and listen to his podcast. I'm Lucas, aka 3 Point Spanish King. Welcome to follow me. Well, James. At least, you know, at the end of the day, at the end of the Ashes series, at least you got the 100 to look forward to.
Cheers, Lucas.
All right, see you on that night. See you later, guys. Thank you for watching.